The private life of Minnesota Timberwolves superstar Anthony Edwards is playing out publicly on social media.
After a woman accused him of paying her to get into comments in the heat of the moment that are not me, that are not aligned with what I believe and who I want to be as a man.
Oh boy, Anthony Edwards most definitely doesn't want you to see this video. He doesn't want you to see any of this, none of these messages or anything of that. As a matter of fact, if Anthony Edwards had it his way, none of this information would have ever gotten out. Unfortunately for Anthony Edwards, his private messages got leaked out to the entire world to see because he hasn't learned the age-old lesson that I really wish athletes would learn. You might be wondering,
well, Mike, if he doesn't want us to see this content, why are you making videos on it?
well, because once private information gets tens of millions of views, it's not so private anymore, is it? So before we get to the content, we're making a huge push on Snapchat. Make sure you follow us there. You get more of an in-depth look behind the scenes of what I do on a day-to-day basis. And make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. We made $1,100 off of a $20 entry on Prize Picks. And it wasn't just me, it was everyone that followed these picks on my Instagram story. And the best feeling is the amount of people that made money as a result of this. I mean, bam, bam, bam. Bam! My DMs were flooded, so the best part for me was seeing you guys make money as well. But we're not done yet. PrizePicks has a promo for a free square. All Kevin Durant needs is to score 1 point on Christmas Day, which means we only need to get one pick correctly in order to make some more money. If you haven't signed up for PrizePicks, use my promo code microphone to double your deposit up until $100 on PrizePicks. And I give away my picks on a daily basis for free on my Instagram story and now my Snapchat story. We're having so much fun doing this. I'm so happy that I made you guys some money, and thank you PrizePicks for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Last year we saw the Memphis Grizzlies dominate the Western Conference. I mean, it was truly remarkable to watch. A team that has been rebuilding consistently over the past few years finally did what needed to be done to become second in the Western Conference. I mean, Ja Morant was an MVP candidate. He was considered to be one of the most marketable stars in the NBA. This is their second year in a row where they were able to achieve this feat. It seemed like nothing was able to stop the Memphis Grizzlies. The problem was the Memphis Grizzlies were a very young and fairly immature team. Don't get me wrong, there were talented players on this team. Dillon Brooks was establishing himself as the enforcer of the team. He had this little cute beef with Draymond Green. Ja Morant had a very legitimate claim to win NBA MVP. And then they got in their own way. Ja Morant started taking out guns on social media. I mean, excuse me, taking out toy guns on social media. They would get knocked out in the first round by the Los Angeles Lakers, and then he'll get himself into trouble again. They would trade Dillon Brooks because Dillon Brooks liked poking bears.
Poke bears. I don't respect no one until they come and give me 40.
And as a result of losing Dillon Brooks and trading Tyus Jones for Marcus Smart and not having Ja Morant, the Memphis Grizzlies are closer to getting a top 3 pick in this year's NBA draft than they are to dominating the Western Conference like they were over the past 2 years. The point being that it's really nice to see these young teams begin to dominate, but it's really unfortunate if they get in their own way. This year's dominant young team is none other than the Minnesota Timberwolves, a surprise story that none of us were expecting. The Minnesota Timberwolves are the top team in the West and have as many losses as the Boston Celtics. The Rudy Gobert trade finally paid off. The rebuild that has been going on for over a decade is finally over. And this is primarily because, well, all these young players finally learned how to play together. Karl Anthony Towns has a brand new focus on defense. Rudy Gobert seems more like a defensive captain than an offensive liability. Him and Mike Conley picked up where they left off in Utah. And most importantly, the team's star player, Anthony Edwards, is playing like a bona fide superstar after a new fire was lit within him following his summer for Team USA. He's averaging 24 points off of 40% shooting from 3. He has a box plus minus of 2.9. The Minnesota Timberwolves, for the first time in over 15 years, have actually become a dominant force in the Western Conference. And that is no small feat or no small achievement. But like the Memphis Grizzlies, they're in danger of getting in their own way. Anthony Edwards is without a doubt one of my favorite athletes in the NBA, primarily because of how outspoken he is. I mean, his interviews are always instant classics. Remember this?
Where you from, Jim?
Ireland.
I like your accent. It's tough.
Oh.
I want to learn how to talk like that. But ask your question again. I was too much listening to your accent.
Or what about this moment?
And I had to get Popeyes after the game.
Where do Popeye's fries rank?
Fries, they top 4. They top 4.
Okay.
They top 4.
Awesome. Thanks, Ann. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate that.
And probably my favorite interview of all is this one interview he had.
Sounds like you're just an athlete.
Yeah.
Okay, ping pong, baseball, football, basketball.
Tennis, swimming, lacrosse, whatever you need me to play, I'm going to go do it. If it's some money on the line, I'm going to go do it.
Can you golf?
Whatever you need me to do.
Okay, hockey.
Whatever, on the ring, whatever you need me to do, it don't matter.
Got it.
Trash can ball, we can do whatever you want.
Trash can
Cook
ball.
food.
You can go pro.
Cook food. That's something to do. I bet I'll be A1 from day one.
The guy is charismatic. The guy is good at basketball. The guy has a killer mentality. People were saying that he was one of Michael Jordan's long lost children, which I guess is the new trend. Anytime a basketball player is starting to play out of his mind, we just assume that they're MJ's long lost child. With that being said, Anthony Edwards is also just 22 years old. And when you're 22 years old and you're making the amount that Anthony Edwards is making, which he recently agreed to a 5-year contract extension that could reach $260 million, that comes with a lot of additional responsibility. So if you remember, in the summertime, we made a video that's similar to this about the #1 overall pick in the 2019 NBA draft, the draft before Anthony Edwards, where Zion Williamson got into some trouble with a woman that he allegedly had an entanglement with. And that became a whole situation. It made its way to social media. It became a huge headache. And at the time, my takeaway was strictly that athletes need to be careful with who they get involved with romantically. I mean, the blueprint for success in the NBA has already been laid out. If you want to make sure that women don't distract you when you're in the NBA, you have to marry your high school or college sweetheart. Some examples of this happening successfully is Kobe Bryant, although of course we know that there were stuff that happened between Kobe and Vanessa in years past. Steph Curry and Aisha Curry, which I know there are stories about them too, but probably the best example is LeBron and Savannah James. I mean, LeBron literally has this one viral moment where he runs the wrong way on an escalator to avoid groupies that are chasing after him. That is the mentality you need to have once you make $260 million over 5 years. And unfortunately, a lot of these athletes don't learn this until later on in their career. When they're young and they're naive, they have this huge target painted on their back, because if a woman has a child with a multi-millionaire like Anthony Edwards, then her life is set. With that being said, Anthony Edwards is going viral on social media for an alleged exchange he's had with an alleged baby mama or potential baby mama. And this woman, taking a page out of Mariah Mills's book, posted it all over social media, which I personally am not a fan of, but I could understand why she did it given her situation. I mean, that's literally all the leverage she has in this situation, and she's gonna use it because she felt like she wasn't treated properly. So this is how it goes. The blue is obviously the woman saying, I still have an appointment on the 27th. Anthony Edwards says, hell no, I can't do this. She responds saying, so now what? What a great response. Anthony Edwards says, get an abortion. She responded by saying, I had an abortion with my son around 2 years ago and I regret it every day, which is already like a very heavy statement to hear. I mean, a part of me wants to feel empathetic for the fact that this woman is repeating painful lifestyle decisions and falling into the same pattern over and over and over again. But Anthony Edwards' response to this is, wow. It sounds like he's like some sort of like Hoodville philosopher here, saying, man, you can't force a kid in the world. You don't know what it is yet. Which I'm trying to understand, you don't know what it is yet is supposed to mean. The only conclusion I can come to is maybe Anthony Edwards is really like all the way to the far left. So he's saying you can't assume the gender of the child. But apart from that, I'm lost. So if someone else wants to translate it for me, let me know. The woman responds saying, that's not the point. I said I had an 2 years ago and I regret it. Anthony Edwards responded saying, yeah, but I don't want a kid. Which, by the way, man, again, on one hand, Anthony Edwards is really young. Young people make mistakes. I've made mistakes as well. Not this type of mistake, but man, this is a mistake that I can't ever forgive a young athlete for making. It's a story that's as old as the dawn of time. I mean, the amount of times I've made content on athletes being placed in this situation is nauseating. And you would think that they would look at these stories and say,
Okay, well, how do I break the cycle? How do I make sure that I am not stuck with an unwanted child with an unwanted partner?
But I guess in this situation, he didn't know better. Now, Anthony Edwards tries to do the right thing here, offering to pay her to get rid of the child. Anthony Edwards does kind of gaslight her, saying, I don't want kids, let's handle this like grown-ups. The woman saying, I'm not trying to force you to be a dad to a baby you don't want, I just don't like. That doesn't make me wrong. If you really don't want to do this, then fine, I won't. Edwards then says, just take the pills. And then she says, you don't care about no one but you. I mean, obviously, if he doesn't want this child, then yeah, he's looking out for his best interest. Anthony Edwards would then say, you got the money, what's the holdup? Because now you want to make a problem. She says, make what problem exactly? I've been nice this whole time. I don't want to bother you because I don't want to cause problems. I told you I would because you want me to. So that's that you talking about a life, just be somewhat understanding. I told you I'll be home soon. Anthony Edwards then wants verification that she did this. He says, I want a video of the box with the right pills. And she says, what other pills would they be? And he just said, I'm just making sure. The wild part about this is 1 week later, she tries to engage him about this. And Anthony Edwards hits her with the, my attorney is going to handle it. And then she says, you said we're going to handle it ourselves. And then when I do my part, you turn away. She then mentions that his attorney doesn't respond. And she also shows how much money she got paid to get rid of the child. Which, man, I mean, this is a really crappy situation. I mean, getting caught on text pressing a woman to get rid of a child is not a good look. And I'm very conflicted about how I feel about this because on one hand, you did the deed, you didn't use protection, you knew that this could happen, and you've seen many stories of this exact situation happening. And once it did happen, it seemed like Anthony Edwards wasn't fine with the consequences. And I guess in his case, he's lucky that this woman did what he wanted her to do. At the same time, from the woman's perspective, I mean, this doesn't sound like it's her first rodeo either. Like, the sentence, I don't like is wild to me. And the text, getting a LOL might be the craziest text I've ever seen from an NBA player so far. And so, like, on one hand, I want to be empathetic because Anthony Edwards is young, and when you're young and you make that much money, you have a target on your back, and as a result, this is what usually comes from it. But on the other hand, I wish he handled this with some more compassion and grace, and at the very minimum, have this conversation in person, because if not, then text messages end up getting leaked out, and I don't think she should have done that either. I'm not really sure what her angle is here now. I'm assuming that Anthony Edwards ghosted her, and as a result, this is how she's trying to get a reaction out of him. Either that or she wants more money, because at the end of the day, $100,000 doesn't come close to the amount of child support you would have gotten for the rest of your life. So I'm assuming she's just trying to do right by Anthony Edwards, and she feels like she was wronged as a result of her doing what he wanted, because this is a woman that said that she really doesn't want to get rid of the child, but she did so anyway. I mean, at least that's what I'm assuming. I don't know, this is a very tough situation, and Anthony Edwards would actually address this in a statement, saying, I made comments in the heat of a moment that are not me, and that are not aligned with what I believe and who I want to be as a man. All women should be supported and empowered to make their own decisions about their bodies and what is best for them. I am handling my personal matters privately and will not be commenting on them any further at this time. This is him straight up saying, hey, I didn't want this shit out there. I want this to be as private as possible because this is a nightmare for athletes whenever it gets out there. But you guys could let me know what you think about this. At the end of the day, I think he's a young kid with way too much money, and as a result, you find yourself in these situations. And it's very difficult to handle these situations, and to be honest, you don't really get the tools to handle these situations until later on in your 20s. I feel like he should have treated her with a little bit more compassion and grace, but at the same time, I could understand you panicking in that type of situation. At the end of the day, I'm going to stick with what I said when I made the Zion Williamson video. They need to teach classes to athletes about this. I feel like a lot of these situations come from a result of a lack of education. These athletes need to know that these Instagram models are all after them for a reason, and I just wish that was hammered in a little bit more. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.